What we're going to do here is look at 3 different types of tree that are all tall and slender, or to be more accurate, 2 trees that are tall and slender and 1 plant. Now the first one we're going to look at is the tall and elegant Italian cypress tree. Now the second one we're going to look at is the Lombardy poplar, and this is the poplar tree that you see typically thousands of them in lines alongside many French roads. But not only there, you see them all over the place. As you can see here, they're in the middle of a field. Now here, of course, perhaps not quite so elegant as the Italian cypress tree, is the cactus plant. Now the 2 brushes that I'm going to use are the number 6 round brush to paint in the basic shapes, and then I'm going to use this little flat bristle brush about a 1/4 of an inch wide, which I'll use to create some texture on the cactus plant itself. Right, now here's a selection of the colours that I'm going to be using, and it's a good example where you can see just by using a couple of blues and a couple of yellows you can create all sorts of different greens without having to go to the tube green. I've also used burnt umber and ultramarine blue to create what will be a little bit of a grey colour mixed with plenty of water for the trunks when I come to them. But what I've done here is sketched the outlines of these trees so you can see how they work, and it'll perhaps, if you're not too sure, give you a little bit of confidence so you know what the shape of the trees look like. So the first thing I'm going to do on the cypress tree is to bring in this lighter or mid-green colour for the light side of the tree. You notice the way I'm actually painting upwards, the way the tree actually grows, and I'm using the side of the brush and I'm scraping the side of the brush. Now although this is a fairly elegant smooth profile tree, there are few little edges that aren't absolutely in line, so don't be afraid to include those. Now I'm going to go into the much darker colour here and start the same sort of process on the left hand side, or the shadow side of the tree. I might actually just take some of that paint off because I want it to be a little bit hit and miss. It's important you go in to this while it's still damp, and don't be afraid to put a few little darks heading in the direction of the sunny side of the tree. There we go, like that. Just the odd little dark underneath. And then just finish off with a bit of blue-grey for the trunk, like that. Right, darker touch down the left hand side of the trunk, a bit dark underneath there, that's fine. And then a little bit of greenery so that the tree's sitting in there. Right, now you can see from this picture that you can have tall, slender, cigar-shaped cypress trees, but you can also have shorter trees and sort of quite short and fat pear-shaped varieties as well. You can see here I've done this version in that shorter, fatter way. I've done that a little bit more wet than this one here. This one I let the paint dry a little bit, so you can see you can get 2 quite different effects using exactly the same paints. What I'm doing, starting at the base, is actually scraping upwards, and I'm trying to actually create these raggedy edges by hitting and missing and using the side of the brush like that. This is another way you can try and doing it, and it's actually pushing up with the brush with the bristles slightly splayed. There we go, that gives a nice effect. That gives that sort of more of that raggedy sort of effect that we're trying to achieve. Right, I'm going to go into some of the dark green now. Splay that out again. This time just push up and just dab in here and there. I know I'm doing about 3 different ways in the same tree, but really it's just to show you what sort of effects you can get with each type. Then what I'll do is use some of the burnt umber, dragging in some of the blue, so we've got a browny grey. We don't want it brown, but browny grey is fine. And that's going to allow us just to put a little bit of the hit and miss technique and some of these thinner branches. You can see with the poplar it actually has quite a stout base where it goes into the ground. It's almost as if it's trying to support that tree. Again, using the number 6 brush, is just very quickly paint up the length of the tree. Okay, now that wasn't difficult, was it? It's only taken about 30 seconds real time. Again, the sun's going to come from the right hand side, so we're going to have a little bit of shadow on the left hand side. You notice the way to get this line, I'm running my hand down the paper. I'm not doing that with the brush, otherwise you'll lose control of it. And I'm doing it as a sort of a stripy effect. That's not the final finished effect, but it does give us the start of those little grooves that you get, the characteristic grooves that you get into in a cactus. And this is going to cast a bit of a shadow here, so that will be cast on there like that. And similarly, this one will have a little bit of a shadow cast by this here, and then finally this one will cast a little bit of a shadow there. Now the reason I've put all the shadows in first is that I want to be able to paint these characteristic grooves over the shadows. Same principle if you remember the Matterhorn mountain, where we put the shadow areas first and then put the detailing of the rocks over them afterwards, so it didn't smudge and blur the shadow. Right, now I'm taking some clean water and taking most of it out, and I'm just going to take the hard edge off these shadow areas. Right, now I'm going to use the bristle brush. In fact, I'm going to lighten it off slightly because we don't want it too dark. We want to retain the essential sunlight on this cactus. And then I'm just going to start at the top and take a bit more off. There we are, that's better. Now you can see the effect that we're getting. It's got to be a fairly confident sweep of the brush. Go over the shadow areas as well, because they need texture just like the rest of the plant. Right, now I've just used a damp, thirsty brush just to take out some lighter grooves in the texture. You can see I've done that here. You could use a flat chisel brush if you wanted. I've just used the tip of the number 6 brush. So there we have it. On the face of it, you wouldn't think any of these trees would have similarities, but these certainly have similarity in shape, and even the cactus tree, which I know is loved by many. It's not the most elegant of plants, but it's very, very popular with many people. Even the cactus tree, if you look at the way the offshoots come out from the main stalk, very, very similar to the poplar tree in the way the branches emerge in much the same way. And of course, the Italian cypress tree has several versions and different sizes and shapes that you can produce to give yourself a little variety.